Today we're taking a look at the Dual 750-20 from Hardcore eCycles. Welcome back to Mike's Archery's YouTube, and today we are taking a look at a brand new e-bike from Hardcore eCycles. Now, this is something new that he's brought to the market for this year, and we have not done anything on any e-bikes in a little while, so it was great to see some new products to play with today. And this bike kind of breaks the convention of what everybody else was doing. This is a little smaller bike. It's called the Dual 750-20. It is a dual 750 watt hub drive on both ends, so you got a two-wheel drive bike, but it's got 20-inch tires. So it's basically coming in at an equivalent of about a 24-inch frame bicycle. It looks a lot shorter because it is a lot shorter, but you're still getting plenty of ground clearance and a ton of power out of this e-bike. Just because it looks a little smaller than what the competition is putting out there, don't let that fool you. This bike has got a ton of power and a ton of features built into it. As we take a look at some of the features on this new bike, with that smaller frame, it kind of opens up a lot of versatility. Now, a lot of the other e-bikes from some of the other companies with the higher frames and that straight mid-bar across the middle, it makes it kind of difficult to get on and off. Now, if you've got the racks on the back, some of your gear on there, swinging your leg over the back of that bike can be a little bit of a challenge. With this smaller frame and a little shorter platform, this allows you to step through the frame with all your gear, your hunting clothes on. If you've got your tree stand, your bow, whatever it is on the back of that bike in different scenarios, you're going to be able to still step through that frame and really easily get on and off of this bike without having any trouble. It fits pretty much everybody from down to about a 5-foot frame all the way up to somebody that's 6'4", because you're just going to be able to adjust that seat post to be able to fit whatever height you are and be comfortable riding this bike. Like I said, just because the frame looks a little small on it doesn't mean that it won't fit you. A lot of guys look at that thing and it is designed what I would consider more of looking like a women's style bike with that down tube coming a little lower, but that's functionality from a hunting standpoint. It's going to allow you to get on and off the bike a whole lot easier. So Hardcore has really stepped up their game with some high quality name brand components. Starting with that 20-inch tire that this whole platform is built around, they are putting a standard 4-inch Kenda tire on this, which is a nice brand name tire that you're seeing on a lot of the fat tire bikes these days. From there, they're using all Shimano components. So you've got Shimano hydraulic disc brakes, front and back. So those are going to be high quality components that are going to bring you to a stop when you want to get stopped. And they also put in Shimano derailleurs on the back end. So you've got high quality components there as well. Plus, your regular bike shop is going to be very familiar with those components. If you have to take this in for any type of maintenance, you can take it to a standard bike shop and they should be familiar how to calibrate those derailleurs or work on those brakes from a standpoint of any other bike that's on the market. From there, they have gone above and beyond what every other bike maker has, and that's the way they started. They put a 60-volt battery on this bike and it's pushing 18 amps. Now that gives you a few things. One, it gives you a much longer range to be able to ride. This bike typically will give you about a 30-mile ride range. Now that does depend on a lot of factors. If you're in a standard Midwestern territory, with some rolling hills and things like that, you're going to see 30, maybe a little more miles out of a standard ride. Now if you're using a lot of the pedal assist, so that the battery's not working as hard, you're going to get a little more. If for some reason you're in some really steep terrain, it's going to cut back on that amount of ride time that you're going to get. And of course, if you're using the throttle all the time, that's also going to be cutting back on how far you can go. But you're going to get a lot more range out of this bike than you do see out of some of the competition. Now, top speed on this bike, you're going to see upwards of 30 miles an hour, which is faster than you probably need nor want to go in a hunting situation, but it will do it. Now, along with those Shimano gears, you're going to have 24 pedal gears in that gear ratio in the back, and you've got the 5 electric speeds on your computer up front that's going to drive this thing to those higher speeds, better hill climbs, give you all the adjustability to cover any terrain that you need to in a comfortable manner so that you're not getting sweated up going in and out of your stand, scouting, whatever you're doing with this bike. It's going to allow you to be able to cover tons of terrain and not work yourself to death. From there, this bike comes with some other standard equipment on it that you don't see from some of the competition. For starters, it's going to come with your rear rack already on it. It's going to come with a front headlight as well as rear tail lights. Those are disconnectable, so if you don't want to run those at some point, you can just quick disconnect them from the computer or the back end. so you don't have those lights lit up, but we definitely recommend the headlights for sure, as we're always going in the dark and coming out in the dark. It's just a handy item to have. But they are standard on this bike, which those are all add-ons for all the competition. On top of that, he gives a standard item of fenders. Now, these are not what you see on some of the competition as well. He put aluminum fenders on this bike. It is front and rear fenders, come standard from the factory. They bolt in nicely, they're solid, they're not going to rattle, they're going to keep the mud off of you better than the competition because it doesn't have that flex. If you're familiar with some of the other bikes, they typically have a plastic fender that definitely has some flex and some give, can rattle, hit the tires at times. This is a solid aluminum fender that is a very stable piece of equipment that's going to keep you moving through the mud without any issues. Now, on top of the standard accessories that come on this bike, Hardcore does have several add-on accessories that you could get for this bike or even some other bikes on the market. One of the first things that you'll notice is probably the front basket. That's not standard, but a nice feature on the front end. Gives you a nice place to put some smaller gear, small backpacks, something to that effect, maybe some trail cameras, but gives you a nice basket up front to haul some extra gear. From there, he's making a handlebar umbrella. Now that is a neoprene waterproof cover that's going to snap over top of your handlebars, covers up all your electronics, all of your shifters, and all of your throttle and everything up top, so that if you're leaving this bike sit while you're in the tree all day, you don't have to worry about a thunderstorm popping up or something like that. It's going to just help protect some of those electronics and things on the handlebars. From there, he's also making a frame cover. Now that has a few options. It can be put on there and rode with it on the bike. It's going to cover up your batteries, cover the center frame console of the bike, and that's going to allow you a couple of things. It's got a couple nice side pockets on it for you to put your cell phone or maybe some other small gear that you don't want to come out. It's zipper pockets on there. But it also allows you to drop some hand warmers down in there. If it's a really cold day, it's going to keep the heat of your battery in, even if you don't do that. But if you want to add those hand warmers, it's going to extend the life of that battery on really cold hunting days, just keeping that warmth and heat inside there so that you can gain a little more charge out of that battery when the weather's not the best. From there, you've got the Gator Grip bow and gun holders that are going to mount on your handlebars. Now that is a stock item that will fit on pretty much any bike out there, or even four-wheelers and some other items, but it's just going to allow you to ride your gun or bow on the front there, on your handlebars, out of the way where you can see what's going on, so that you know that your gear is safe and in control, and you don't have to worry about getting to your stand and losing or breaking some type of item if you've got it hanging off the back. On top of that, he's offering pannier bags. They are waterproof. They fit right on and specifically designed for the Hardcore. Now, you may find some other bikes out there that they fit on, but we know for sure they fit on this bike. I'm not going to promise you fitting on any other standard racks from anyone else, but it's going to cinch down with several straps and hooks, keeping it very secure, keeping it off the wheels and not allowing it to flop around, so any gear that you put in those pannier bags is going to stay secure as well as waterproof. One of the other adjustable features on this bike is the front air shocks. Those are adjustable and you can lock them out and soften them up to whatever kind of terrain you're riding. Makes for a nice feature on the front end just to give a little less jar in that ride. Now the bike does come standard with a 15-month warranty, so you got a little over a year there to get this thing broke in, and without any issues, this thing will last a whole lot longer than that. But you do have on all your electronics and components a 15-month warranty on this bike. The overall weight on this bike, and I know that is a concern for a lot of people because when you get into an e-bike, they are a lot heavier than just a standard bicycle. This bike comes in at 78 pounds, but with the pedal assist, you're not going to notice that, and it's going to glide right down the road and you're not going to have any issues. Now loading it, obviously 78 pounds, you're going to have some situations where getting that up into the bed of your truck, however you're hauling this vehicle, you may need some help getting that up there depending on your physical abilities. Now the bike overall length is 65 inches from the tire to the tip, so fairly short in that regard, and it will fit easily in the bed of your truck, probably in the back of some SUVs. You'll be able to put this bike just about anywhere in some small compact vehicles to take it to your hunting place without having to load up the truck and trailer to get there. Now let's talk a little bit about classification of e-bikes. This bike, for you public land guys, it can be classified depending on what settings you put it in as a Class 1 or a Class 2 e-bike. What that means is a Class 1 e-bike is anything that is under 20 miles per hour. It also has to be less, 750 watts or less on the bike, and it cannot have a throttle. Now this bike has the ability for you to disconnect the throttle and also put a limiting factor on the speed so that it could be classified as a Class 1 bike. Now Class 2 is verified by being still 20 miles per hour or less. You still have to have 750 watts or less of power on that bike, but you add a throttle to it. So if you hook that back up and limit the speed on this bike, it can be classified as a Class 2. From there, if you go to a Class 3, it's anything that is greater than 750 watts and will travel over 20 miles per hour. At that point, you are considered a motorized vehicle and are probably illegal on pretty much every public land situation. But if you're trying to get into some of those public land spots, you can definitely take this bike and adjust some of the settings on it so that you are perfectly legal. With that said, be sure and check any of your regulations in whatever state you're in, because these regulations are still evolving. They're always changing. Every DNR looks at it a little bit differently, and I would most certainly recommend you contact your local DNR or state officials so that you know how to possibly run your bike, where you can ride your bike, and what you can and cannot get away with, so that you don't get a ticket in a dumb situation where you were just ignorant of how they've changed the laws. Now we took a look at the ground clearance on this bike, and it is 8 inches to the bottom of the sprocket guard. Now that's about 1 inch less than what you're seeing on the fuller, larger frame size bikes out there. So really you're not losing that much because of the smaller frame on this bike. The other thing we like about the Hardcores is he's brought the handlebar width in. It's only 27 inches wide at the handlebars, so you're going to be able to cut through some tight trees. Getting in and out of trails, things like that are not going to be an issue. A lot of bikes have 30, 35 inch wide handlebars, and that for a woods situation or a hunting situation can be a little bit of an issue. But they definitely, with this smaller scale bike, you're going to be able to maneuver through the woods quite easily. Last of all, we took a look at the price. Now this bike, obviously not a low-end bike, but bang for the buck ahead of everyone else. You're only just under $3 grand. You're at $29.95 on this bike at MSRP. And I don't think that you could step into a more powerful tool, a more powerful bike with as many features from any other manufacturer than you can with this one at $3,000. So if you're taking a look at one of these Hardcore bikes, be sure and give us a call and we'll do the best to get you set up. We're hoping to see these things in sometime in October, and we're going to have a ton of options for you to go with it as far as accessories.